population.
Oh, that's like Black Dynamite, right? With the Cobra.
Is that what's happening? No, Black Dynamite. It's the Cobra. Anaconda Malt Liquor is trying to give get you little woo.
Just kill me.
But the scene is, well, there's a lot of this, but basically probably the grossest out of all of them is when the liquor store owner decides to drink the booze for whatever reason he has, and he walks outside and his body just completely deteriorates and he becomes this melted mess, and it looks like Jell-O mixed with spaghetti and pudding, and he's crawling down the street.
Oh man,
it is a disgusting movie. There's a lot of that. There's one of the opening parts of the movie is when the homeless guy gets sucked into the toilet.
Oh gosh,
it's like puffing in and out of the toilet. It's disgusting and repulsive, and I think that's going to be my first pick.
Oh, that's a good one. All right, so I got to go with my second one, and this is from another movie I don't really love, but there's a scene where in Van Wilder with Ryan Reynolds where they have a bulldog, and they have the bulldog, they take the bulldog's semen and they put it into eclairs, and then they show frat boys eating it with the stuff spilling out of it.
Ugh.
And they're just going, oh yeah, it's so good. And this is another movie I hated. I'm like, I can't believe they did this. This isn't a movie. That I felt repulsed by it. I've never really had a visceral reaction to anything in movies. And watching that, I'm like, this is too much. This is too far. I hate it. This isn't funny. This is stupid. I hate you. Like, I almost wrote a letter writing campaign, but it's just stuck with me. It's just stuck with me for so long, man. I had to do it. Like, I just had to add that scene because, I mean, it's effective, I guess, but it's psychotic that it happened in a movie.
To add to a little more of a cringe to it, which is definitely a gross out, and really kind of like, I think everybody that sees this movie knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's 1990s Misery.
Oh yeah.
Whoa, the hobbling of the legs or feet. I'm sorry. Holy crap.
Oh, so I'm going for like gross out gags and like sex comedies, like American Pie, like, you know, when he's with the pie, or the drinking of the beer, the pale ale. That's kind of what I was saying, like gross out gags and comedy.
Well, you know, I might have to. That's kind of what I was. That's what I hit was Misery. So.
Oh, got it. Oh, that's fine.
Oof. If you want to give me a second, I can probably come up with.
No, that's fine. Do it. I didn't give you clear rules. I mean, that's a gross scene, man. That's a
yeah. When you're watching that scene, whenever whenever Annie hits James Caan's foot because she finds out that he's actually he's getting out of the room and she wants to keep him captive. Just that shot of the foot being like, whoop. It's like, what?
I mean, that's beautiful. I love that movie.
Easily one of my favorite horror films of all time, and holy crap.
It's one of the rare Academy Award-winning horror films, too, with Kathy Bates.
Yes, and that was very early in her career, too.
Oh, man, I love that movie. I had to write about it. I had to do a thing where Stephen King movies, which was the best. And that's a lauded movie. Rob Reiner, James Caan. Oh, yeah. So damn good.
That movie's jam-packed with a lot of different talent. And to have that acting and just having her being so like overbearing and being like, you can't leave. Oh, my God. Jeez Louise.
And it's funny that you picked this one, too, because I'm going to go with the Stephen King adaptation with Stand By Me for my third pick.
Man.
With the barf. I mean, I'm going to change it up. I'm going away from sex comedies, but the vomit scene where the kid just eats all that blueberry pie and then just barfs it into that guy's face and everybody. Like, when I watched that, when I was younger, I never saw that coming, because Stand By Me, it's a pretty serious movie. And this scene with the explosive barf. Yeah, so that's my number 3.
Yeah, when he's eating all the pie and then he turns and looks and blah.
I mean, it's it, right? Isn't that? Ugh.
God, yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was the scene. I remember whenever I first saw Stand By Me, it was on TV, and this was in the mid 90s where things were very heavily edited for television, and that scene was actually taken out. So I grew up not knowing that scene existed until many, many years later, probably up until maybe 6 years ago, that I finally saw it on unedited. And I was like, wow, how come I never saw that scene?
It's so excessive, and you wouldn't expect it. So I'm going with things that just really shocked me in the moment. I guess just really blew my mind. So those are my three. So how do you want to finish up?
All right. Well, to finish it up, I'm going to go back to a comedy, and this one's a little bit lighthearted, and it's not like completely repulsive, kind of like what I had with Street Trash and adding on with my other movie. I'm going to go with Misery. I'm going to go with There's Something About Mary.
Oh,
and the scene with the semen, Mary putting it into her hair. I found that it's disgusting, but it's also funny. Everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. When Mary takes the hair gel from Ben Stiller's ear, puts it in her hair, and her hair stands straight up.
It's insane. We have two Fairley Brothers movies on here, so that's great.
Those guys know how to do their stuff. I'll tell you that. I mean, they come from a very long time of kicking ass with these movies. I mean, Airplane. I mean, holy crap.
It's just that scene though, and that movie was a blockbuster, a legit,
oh my God, it was huge
blockbuster, and that set piece was everywhere. I mean, posters everywhere. Cameron Diaz was super brave to do that.
Yeah,
and she nailed it.
She's amazing in what she does. She's always been great. I love seeing her in every movie. Every time she's on a film, it's always a delight to see her.
And the tough pit with that is, so you have that scene that I talked about in Hall Pass, but that's done, one and done. You're over. Like, you have to provide a jetpack to shoot out of there. Like, there's a gag. But Cameron Diaz had to sit there for hours with her hair up, knowing exactly what it was. I mean, that's just such a that's a great pick, man.
Yeah, it's a fun movie as well. So. Yeah, that's my final pick.
Jeez. All right, how about this? Let's regroup here. Let's take a quicker break, and then when we come back, we'll talk more American Pie. Welcome back to Movies, Films, and Flicks. And I gotta say, the directors of this film, Paul Weitz, Chris Weitz, they went on to successful careers. I mean, Chris went on to direct New Moon. He just recently did Operation Finale. They both worked on But a Boy, which is a movie I really love. Chris Weitz came back with A Better Life, which actually got Damien Bashir an Academy Award nomination. He worked on Golden Compass, and he also wrote Rogue One, Cinderella, and The Clumps, Nutty Professor 2, which kind of blows my mind. And then Paul Weitz directed American Dreams, where he brought back Chris Klein to sing. That movie was not good.
I don't think I've ever seen that one. I always get that confused with Swing Vote for some reason. The movie with Kevin Costner, who's the last guy that has the vote to swing the election. Oh, I don't know why I always get American Dreams and Swing Vote confused with one another.
We should do American Dreams, Swing Vote, and Welcome to Mooseport. As a series.
Welcome to Mooseport. Man, that was the last movie that Gene Hackman ever did. After he did that movie, he became a professional cyclist.
Oh, I love it. I'm getting out of here. And then I also think we've talked about this guy before, but Richard Curto, the cinematographer, he worked on Out Cold. He also did a movie called Grind. And he got his training working on Last Dragon, Raising Arizona, Ghostbusters 2. He did some work on Donnie Darko. But yeah, I think there's nothing about this film that is super, none of the shots you're going to talk about. There's no major shocks, but I think it does a solid job in regards to capturing the humor. They thought about capturing the jokes the best way they could. So I think it's just in traditional kind of teenage sex comedy cinematography. I mean, I'd say it's just about perfect.
Yeah, I think Richard Crudo, he did a really good job with what he knew what he was shooting. There was only a few times, according to the commentary, where Richard had actually spoke up and said, "Oh, I did that wrong." And that was specifically whenever Heather and Oz are walking on the pier, which was originally supposed to be on a beach, but apparently they couldn't get the funding to go to the beach. So they just said, forget it, we're going to do it on a pier. And that scene, there was originally shot, there was no sparkles behind Heather. And whenever they watched the dailies, Paul said that Richard came up to them and said, "Shit, man, you were right. We should have put some sparkles behind her." Because it just looked like Heather and then a black screen.
Oh, wow.
If you think about it, if you watch that scene, there's all these lights behind them, and there's lights behind Oz, but there's no lights behind Heather, which in the aspect of that scene, it makes sense. But visually, does not make sense, and it looks really weird. You're like looking at two different scenes. So they had to reshoot that. That was part of one of the very few reshoots that they did for this movie. But yeah, I mean, to add to his resume, I mean, he also worked on Field of Dreams and Jungle Fever. So he's been crushing it for a very long time, and he's still doing really well. He was the president of the American Society of Cinematographers from 2003 to 2005, and then again from 2013 to 2016. So he's definitely an amazing, accomplished cinematographer, to say the least.
And it's interesting too. He goes from such sort of there are some visually dynamic movies in there. I mean, Raising Arizona is just always moving. Whoa. It's like he wasn't the cinematographer; he was a Steadicam op. But it was interesting how he made the transition into comedies there for a little while. And I think people don't. Did we do So I Married an Axe Murderer? It was you and I, right?
Yes.
I thought that was interesting how the director kept wanting to do all these fancy dolly shots. And Mike Myers is like, no, you got to show both eyes. So it takes discipline to shoot comedy. So I think that you can't just be an inexperienced cinematographer and shoot it. But I mean, I guess, yeah, all I'm saying is here, see, I think this is, the later on we get, I think this might be one of the better looking filmed, I would say, in just regards to the cinematography. I don't think they get any better than this in the American Pie quadrilogy. I don't know what you think.
No, they really knew what they were doing with this one. They knew they were shooting a comedy, and they knew that it was going to have to be. There wasn't really that much Steadicam in this, and the reason being is that Paul said, and just to add to that, Paul had never directed anything prior to this movie, and neither did Chris. They actually both did a little bit of associate producing, most famously on the Fantasy Island reboot, but they really didn't do too much other than that. The writer, Adam Hers, who actually goes by the nickname of Hersey, he didn't write anything prior to this. So you have a bunch of inexperienced people that want to come together to make this movie. And to add to the cinematography, Paul said that he wanted this to have a retro feel to it. So they wanted to use as little of Steadicam as possible. And the only time you can really notice the Steadicam is whenever Jim is walking up to Nadia. And also, if you're paying attention, when he's walking up to Nadia, you can see a flag actually on the left-hand side in the party blocking a light.
Oh, that's amazing.
They pointed that out in the commentary, which is pretty funny. But no, you can feel that with the movie, that they kind of wanted to give it a little bit of a retro feel to it. It was it's an updated current movie, but at the same time, it had a lot of retro shots, which a lot of dollies, a lot of not Steadicam, a lot of sticks being used, and that's kind of how they wanted to make this movie feel. So they wanted to make it feel like you're kind of watching like a timeless movie, if you want to say it like that.
I mean, aside from maybe some of the internet stuff, it still holds up pretty good in regards to looking somewhat It's not overly dated. I mean, I know you have the cargo shorts, and you have the sweaters with the V-neck and the white shirts.
Yeah, that was big in those days. Yeah. Oh, man.
But you just reminded me of a scene where Jim first walks up to Nadia, and he just starts laughing. There are several moments in this movie where you just want to cover your eyes. Like when he just walks up to her, and there's that painfully awkward moment when Oz does the Scooby-Doo Bop scene at the end, and the teacher's like, man, you crushed it. I'm like, what? But and then the whole scene about Casanova in the car. You really do. There's moments where it's cringe comedy, but it's not like raunchy cringe comedy, if that makes sense. They actually have, there's cringe laughs in here, and then there's cringe comedy. It's an interesting blend of kind of laughing. And also the music, the scene where Finch has to go to the bathroom, there's surf music playing for some reason.
Yeah, the song Walk, Don't Run.
Yeah, I love that. And then you have, Mrs. Robinson when Finch meets Stifler's mom. I mean, just the classic film from The Graduate, which makes me so happy to see. I don't know, they thought this movie through, and they added it in with little things. And I think that's another reason that kind of added to its comedy. Because we talked about, Detroit Rock City. And that movie is more based around the characters being loud, right? There's some funny moments, but there's not... I mean, he pukes in a thing for a while. That's about it.
Yeah, there's not too much gross out humor in Detroit Rock City.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one definitely probably has more heart than the comedies we've talked. Maybe Role Models could match it.
Yeah, a little bit, but then Role Models came out 10 years after this.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, imagine if Oh man, never mind. I would have liked to seen Jane Levy as Stifler's mom.
I'm sorry. Could you say it again?
What, Jane Levy, right? Yeah, Jane Levy from Role Models. I would love to have her in American Pie. Is she one of the? Is that her name?
Gene Levy?
Yeah, from
You talking about Eugene Levy? The
no,
guy?
Jane from Role Models. It's
Jane Lynch.
Jane Lynch.